My family wants me to join them for Christmas after disowning me over 8 years ago. Need advice on whether to go or not to go. Original post. After being disowned 8 years ago, my family has invited me, my wife, 27-year-old female, and daughter, 1-year-old female, for Christmas. After getting conflicting advice from my friends, one of my buddies told me to post my dilemma here to see what random internet strangers would say. I, 25-year-old male, am the youngest of 4 kids between my mom, 52-year-old female, and dad, 54-year-old male. My siblings are fake names: Michael, 31-year-old male, Sarah, 28-year-old female, and my twin brother Casey, 25-year-old male. For context, growing up, I was the black sheep of the family, and I knew that from a very young age. See, my family is full of athletes. My dad was a star basketball player for a D2 school. My mom played volleyball. Michael played soccer. Sarah played softball, and Casey was the star running back for the football team. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but rather I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. My parents were always invested in my siblings and rarely ever attended my events, to the point where I basically had to beg for them to come to my tournaments. Between the ages of 14 to 16, I had taken part in about 20 tournaments, while my parents only showed up to 1. I was never neglected by them, but they were never emotionally there for me as they were for my siblings, and as a teenager I resented that. Whenever I tried to bring this up to them, they would always call me an attention seeker. But however, this is not why I was disowned from my family. When I was 15, I began dating Amy, now 25-year-old female, who was in the same grade as me at the time. After about 6 to 7 months of dating, I introduced her to my folks and my siblings, and they really liked her. I know I was young, but I could see myself having a future with her. Almost 2 years later, one of Amy's ex-friends told me that she had been cheating on me for a couple of months. At the time, I didn't know who the guy was, but after confronting her, she told me that it was my twin brother. She basically told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpasses that. Later that day, when I confronted Casey at home, I was so enraged that I sucker punched him and knocked him out. I admit that I should have not gotten violent, but years of resentment towards him and the rest of the family just burst open. In exchange for my family not pressing charges on me, as I could have been tried as an adult in court, I was sent to live with my paternal aunt, 48-year-old female, who at this point was estranged from the family and lived in another city about 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them. At first it was tough, but later on, with support from my aunt and her husband, 48-year-old male, I moved on from wanting a relationship with them. I transferred to a different high school and attended a university in my aunt's city and graduated as an electrical engineer. I later met my wife and got married to her. I, at the time of my wedding, thought about inviting them, but went against it because I did not want any sort of drama at my wedding. From that point, me and my wife bought a house an hour away from my aunt and were blessed with a daughter a year ago. About a week ago, I received a Facebook message from my mother and father wanting to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them that I would consider it, as I possibly have other plans, but would give them a clear answer soon. Later on, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me. My wife has told me that if I decided to go, she and my daughter would spend Christmas at my father-in-law's house, as she does not have to deal with unwanted stress, as she is 2 months pregnant, and I agree with her. My question to those reading this is that should I go and try to reconcile with my family, or should I not? I am very conflicted on what to do. On one hand, they perhaps feel bad about what they did to me and want to apologize for what they did, but on the other hand, perhaps if I go there, they will try to make me apologize to Casey, which I do not want to. Any advice would be helpful. Now for the top of comments before reading the update. I don't know, as a parent, I cannot fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years after my other child did something so cruel to him, so he hit him. That is just inconceivable to me. I would totally understand if my son hit his brother if he ever did something like that. May be wrong, and I know I'm not supposed to say that, but we're all still human. Whether you can move past the fact they abandoned you to your aunts and turned their backs for 8 years is your choice, but personally, I don't know if I could. If you can and don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame you. If they do, they don't know the full story. If they do know the full story, then they're not worth your time either. As a rule, I'm very suspicious of any stories I hear of families wanting to reconcile without addressing any of the issues that led to the estrangement to begin with. I'm inclined to believe there's something they want from him, like a kidney or wanting access to their granddaughter or something. He has decades of resentment against his family, and they believe they have the higher moral ground. It would be interesting to see what they really want. I would not do it at Christmas. Christmas you spend with those you love. I would suggest you meet with your parents for a lunch, in public, and see why they want to reconnect, and then decide if you want them in your life. You get to be the one to decide, not those that kicked you out. Just you. They have no rights to know your wife and child at this point. Merry Christmas and congrats for the next bottle of joy. Now for the update. Hi there guys, it's been a rough 2 weeks, but thank you all for your advice and support. This is going to be a really long post. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began to experience unbearable pain in her abdomen area, and she hardly could stand on her 2 feet. Me and her sister, 30-year-old female, rushed her to hospital, where we found out that my wife had suffered a miscarriage, and that the fetus had to be removed right away. Honestly, the worst part for me was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife was forced to stay for 2 more days. Honestly, I have been trying to stay strong for my wife and my daughter, but honestly, I am struggling right now. On to the update of the original post. Most of you that commented on the same day I posted told me to not spend Christmas with them because of the significance of that holiday. I agree and decided I would spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them? When I texted them this, I assumed they would try to argue with me, but rather they said they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I began to do some digging into my family to try to figure out why they have reached out. Michael is a corporate lawyer who works for a major company in my hometown. By looking through his Facebook page, he has 2 daughters and was married to his wife in 2016. Sarah appears to be married to a doctor. She herself 8 years ago was studying to be a nurse, and they have a son together. I have a friend who lives in my hometown and has parents who are friends with my parents. When I asked her about Sarah, she told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, after he had committed mail fraud. Casey got married to Amy right after high school, and together they have 2 kids together. I could not exactly figure out what he or his wife does for a living through Facebook, but judging that they bought a big house last year in the midst of a pandemic tells me they are not really struggling. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is really into the wellness community. I then began to list the reasons of why they wanted to possibly reach out to me now. 1. Money. Unlikely because 8 years ago, my parents' combined salary was higher than my wife and my salary, and given that my siblings are not struggling financially makes me think money is not the reason. 2. Organ donation. Couldn't be the case, but seems unlikely, but a Redditor said that it could be that Casey, given he is my twin, would be my most likely match, and I think it's unlikely because he was tagged in a Facebook post skiing just a week before Christmas. 2. Regarding my daughter. They could possibly be reaching out to me to have a relation to my daughter, but I honestly am not sure. My daughter is not the first granddaughter for my parents, so I do not know why they want to meet her. They most likely found out my daughter existed because my wife's Facebook account was public. She has since privated her account. I then contacted my aunt, the estranged one who took me in, informing her about the situation, and she explained to me why they were reaching out to me after all this time. To understand this situation, you need to understand why my aunt was estranged. My paternal grandpa, 79-year-old male, and grandma, 76-year-old female, had 4 children. My dad was the second oldest and my aunt was the third. My aunt after college came out to her parents as horrible and began dating her girlfriend. My grandparents immediately disowned her and refused to have any contact with her. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reach out. About a month ago, my grandpa had been asking about me and what I was doing in life, and whether I was married or had kids. My aunt responded by calling my grandpa out for wanting to know about me after he supported Casey for what he did. That is when the whole situation changes. My grandpa told my aunt that because I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, I deserved to be estranged. My grandpa is a religious nut, so he looks down on cheating. He had been told by my family that after the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, she went to Casey and Sarah for support and comfort. And when I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked Casey and Sarah. While Sarah was the one who tried to break me and Casey apart, I did not lay a finger on her, and I did not brutally attack Casey. When my aunt was telling me this, my jaw dropped. I could not believe that they hated me so much that they were willing to make up a terrible lie about me and spread it around. My aunt later told Grandpa the full truth on what truly happened, and my aunt told me he was shocked because he always thought Casey was a good kid. My grandpa then asked my aunt for my number, which she declined to give. I figured out why my parents and siblings wanted to get into touch with me. It turns out my grandpa had told my parents and my siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. For context, he is a multi-millionaire. So that is why they reached out to me, not to apologize about how they all wronged me in the past, but rather because if they did not, they would not get anything from Grandpa. What a bunch of greedy people. After hearing about this from my aunt, I decided to block all of them. Why should I respond to them? At this point, all of them are dead to me. I have a wife to support after what she went through and a family that respects me and my in-laws. However, this does not end here, as 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number on my work phone. I am used to getting calls from unknown numbers because of my career, and when I picked up, I heard my grandfather's voice. He most likely got my number from my company website. The first thing he did was apologize for not trying to get into contact with me for the past 8 years. He told me he was sorry that he could not be there for important events such as my graduation, my wedding, and the birth of my daughter. I was not really close to him before, so him cutting me off did not bother me. Later in the call, he told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family that he is cutting them off his will and adding me to it. I honestly do not know how to feel about that, as the money would be helpful. But at the same time, I do not want him to use this as a way to force a relationship between me and my daughter. We talked for about half an hour. The way the call went made me think that perhaps I could build a good relationship with my grandpa. But then he told me something that got me really pissed. He told me that he was disappointed in that my daughter had not taken the family name. For context, after I got married to my wife, the issue of what last name to use as a couple came up. For some legal reasons, I was unable to change my last name to my wife's last name, but we decided as a couple that all of our future children would have her last name. I at this point unloaded on my grandpa, calling him a senile old man and many other hurtful things, and told him to never contact me ever again. The audacity of this man to say that after what I went through is something. I will not let him use the money I receive in the will to control me. Even if I receive the money, I will donate it to a local charity, but he is a man of false promises, so this is unlikely. These past few weeks have been really tough for me, and I hope to make it to the other side. My wife has privated her Facebook account, and her in-laws have done the same. What they do to try to contact me is beyond me. Hell, they would probably hire a private detective to try to find me. I believe they do not know where I live, but you never know. I have thought of a get a restraint order, but given that there are lawyers within the family means getting an original poster will be hard. I did not really get any time to answer any questions given in my last post before it was deleted for some reason. I will do my best to answer any questions for the next day or two, but after this I am done using Reddit for a while. Thank you all for your advice, and I wish you all the best in this new year. Story 2. I, 37-year-old male, had dinner with my estranged sister, 47-year-old female, and was forced to pay the bill. How I should proceed. I have a sister, let's call her Clara, that I used to be somewhat close with when we were young. Over our adult lives, we've drifted apart. 3 years ago, due to a fight about her demanding I give my foreign transit pass, worth around $40, to a mutual cousin, whom she was close to. But I barely know the cousin. We've become estranged. It was a silly fight that didn't make sense, since Clara had a good paying job at the time, so she could have just given the money herself. The cousin could have easily afforded it also. We haven't really spoken since. Fast forward to yesterday. I wanted to reconnect with Clara and my nephew, 28-year-old male. I suggested we meet at a restaurant that she likes. I brought my wife and my toddler son. Clara brought my nephew and her new husband of 2 years, stepfather to the nephew. The dinner was good. The heavy-set nephew wanted to order for everyone, so he ended up ordering quite a lot of food. We had a few light conversations about life, travel, work, etc. It felt great, like I've done some good to reconnect with family members, and I have a sister again. Over half of the food was left. The waiter packed it up, and then left the check. My wife had to use the restroom, so I was left with my toddler son, along with Clara, my nephew, and her husband. With one fell swoop, Clara picked up the tray with the containing check and dropped it right in front of me with a thud. Then she said with a smile, "Here, you pay for it." I honestly thought she was joking. I've never encountered a situation where your fellow patrons don't at least split the bill. But being shoved the bill was a shock to me, especially when both Clara and the husband has a senior position at one of the most popular US shipping company. Also, the nephew was just bragging about how he has this great job that makes a ton of money while doing nothing. So I'm basically being asked to treat 3 grown adults. At that moment, it felt surreal to me. All 3 of them was smiling, looking at me to pay, waiting at my response. I felt I had no choice but to drop my card, while still hoping this was all a joke. I strained to maintain a smile. It wasn't a joke. Clara took the tray with the check and only my credit card, and handed it to the waiter. The waiter came back with the charged card and check, and I uncomfortably signed my name on it. My wife came back from the restroom, unknowing of the situation. She saw that I looked distraught, asked if I was okay. I said I needed to use the restroom, and excused myself. In the bathroom, I wanted to scream. Like, what just happened? I didn't have enough time to process what just occurred. I came back to the table. The cherry on top to this event was that they also took home all the leftovers. They just took it. Like, really? Clara shoved me with entire bill, and then took all leftovers. It was just wild. After we parted with Clara and her family, I told my wife what happened. My wife became livid at Clara. I was angry also, at Clara and also at myself. I didn't understand why I agreed to pay. It felt like it happened so fast, and I was put in a situation where I had no choice but to pay for the bill or ruin the dinner. Eventually, my anger turned to disappointment at Clara, thinking how a sibling can be so petty over a dinner bill. Over the drive home, both my wife and I came to the conclusion I should just ask her for her portion of the bill, 3 or 5. When I got home, I texted Clara with a non-confrontational request for payment. Some minutes have gone by. Clara replied, "Okay." That's the only response since yesterday. So my question is, how should I proceed with this relationship? Honestly, I'm not really sure what to think of it all. Now for the advices. No need to maintain any relationship at all. You reached out to her to make things better, but she saw it as an opportunity to get back at you for what happened 3 years ago. Not just that, her husband and son were also in on it since they ordered too much food that they couldn't even finish, kept smiling and expected you to pay the bill, plus took the leftovers home. I am pretty sure they didn't even thank you for the dinner. Clearly, they had this planned out. Story 3. My 35-year-old female husband, 38-year-old male, told me I'm disgusting. We've been together years, have 2 kids together, one a toddler, the other elementary age. I struggle with depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Severely, I'm on 3 different medications and have a history of meth use where I died twice. Not to mention almost being murdered. This is in my past. Yeah, I still struggle. It happens. Between that and childhood trauma, I know I'm going to forever have this struggle. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My kids are homeschooled. I am with them 24/7. Our youngest still co-sleeps. Between my mental health and the time my kids take up, I just sort of put my personal hygiene on the back burner. I will admit, I shower every other day. I brush my teeth every day though. I know I've gained weight since we met. I've also had 2 kids, and then I was bedridden due to a car accident for 6 months. Tonight, he told me I'm disgusting. That I've let myself go and he hates it. That I used to care about myself and now I just don't. I don't know how to process this. It really hurt my feelings and my first instinct was to lash out. But I just left the room. Now I'm crying. How do I explain that it's just not easy for me to have the desire to put more effort in? I want to do better. I want to lose weight and look prettier. But it's like something inside me just hates me so much that I can't. I don't know how to describe it. How should I go about bringing up that it really hurt my feelings and make him understand it's hard for me? Update. I don't know why everyone is harping on the homeschool bit. Like, my kids are extremely socialized, and they learn a lot through various means. Online curriculum, worksheets, co-op. My reason for no public school is honestly nobody's business. But since you all can't stop bringing it up, I believe school to be unsafe. Bullying, school shootings, no real-world value. My son was in kindergarten and coming home telling me he was being bullied. Talks of screw were happening, cussing. Not to mention his individualized education plan being completely disregarded numerous times. I educate my kids at home, but they are not prisoners at home. They have plenty of real-world experiences and friends, and are educated plenty for their ages. And for everyone trying to say they think it's a red flag or dangerous, comparing me to a mom who killed her children. Really? I love my children. Everything I do is for them. That probably is a major reason I am burned out. And others are right. I can't pour from an empty cup. I spend all my energy and love on my kids, leaving none for myself or my husband. Homeschooling my kids is not a red flag. I would never hurt them. And I'm appalled that so many would even think that simply because of my choice on education. One more thing. My past drug use is in my past. I am clean and sober, and have been before my children were born or conceived. So screw off respectfully. How dare any of you think that has something to do with my parenting? The only thing it's done is be more aware of the dangers of drug use. And when my kids are old enough, then being able to share my experiences, so they know that it's no joke. Now for the advices. Depression sucks. It makes you not want to do anything at all. Get those kids in a real school so that you have time to focus on you a little bit. That was my first thought. Anyone in her position really shouldn't be teaching, doing her children and herself a disservice. She switched out drugs for having kids around her 24/7s. Check out some books on codependency. OP, you'll feel better about yourself when you start taking care of yourself. The kids need experiences outside what their mother provides, social interactions, and a proper education. That's all for today. If you are enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you.